And then when the crisis happened, people stopped advertising. We continued to advertise. So everyone else just shut down all the advertising, but we said, here's an opportunity for us. But you just have to be very clever about how you negotiate those deals. So maybe before, where you were paying maybe 5,000 for something on a monthly basis, then you go in and say, well, I'm going to have to bring that down to 3 or 3.5, but I want the same value I was paying for when I was paying you 5,000. And normally, if there is a crisis and these companies want to keep people on the air or keep them on buses or whatever, outdoor, whatever, then they normally do concede and give it. So, I mean, if that happened again, I would do the same again. And sure, look, we're known as the shark when it comes to marketing and costs and being lean. So, I mean, that's important.
Ciarán Mulligan, thank you very much for joining me.
Morning, Connor. How are you?
Very good.
Good.
Thanks for coming in. You're very busy at the moment, as we know, both in business and in personal life. So
Yes, super busy at the moment. Just was feeding 3 babies there a short while ago before I came in. So, yeah, this morning I was up at 7, which isn't too bad. We still have our night nanny at the moment, but not for much longer. So, I think Reen kicked off at 5:30 this morning. So, when the nannies are gone, that's the time we could be potentially up at, each day. But yeah, no, look, we're super busy between the triplets and between the new insurance company, Yes Insurance. So, but sure, look, it's all good. Can't complain.
well, let's talk about Yes Insurance first. So what is it? What do you do essentially? And just I know nothing about insurance and the kind of insurance industry. So as basic as you can to dumb it down for
Okay,
me.
so we're a broker, fintech as such, and we are in the niche insurance sector. So we're doing travel, gadget, pet insurance, car hire excess, wedding, electric bikes, warranty, that type of insurance. Obviously, before I used to own Blue Insurance. I sold that in 2018. Took a break for a while, said I was probably going to retire, and then got bored as an entrepreneur generally does, and then looked at different options, looked at a travel agency in the luxury end of the market, cruising. And then people warned me off that. I said, no, it's not worth the nightmare. Then we looked at a coffee chain, and I went all the way with that, right to the point where I had the design done, all the interior design layout done, met with suppliers, etc. Went to look for premises, and I wanted a place in the city centre, so I looked at South William Street as the key of first shop, and then to start getting into ridiculous rents and ridiculous key money that you'd never get back. And I just thought, this is crazy. This is crazy. And I had a good pal of mine, Dean Cassidy, who would have had cafes and other shops before. And he was working with me on it. But in the end, I had to decide, probably to his unfortunate sort of hurting his feelings, etc. But I had to decide this isn't working because the costs involved for all the effort and everything you were going to put into it. So it was going to be called Mac and Mully. Really cool name. My partner is Brian McCormick, and obviously Mulligan, so it was Mac and Mully, made a cool logo. And we will may do something down the future, but for the moment I had to just step back, and unfortunately I had to say, Dean, this is not going ahead.
Well, it's an interesting time actually for that kind of side of the market, because I think the restaurants and cafes, they've obviously done really well, up until COVID, right, and just after COVID, for that 10-year period. But now it's just the cost of setting up is just
And to be
crazy.
honest, even before COVID, I think restaurants and cafes were struggling. They were just continuing on with it, but the costs and minimum wage, everything was like I've 2 good pals in Cork. They had 3 or 4, and they lost them. The costs were too high. I've seen a number of places around just closing up and going, it's not worth it. And that's the advice I was getting, saying, look, be very careful. These costs are escalating. You nearly need to have €12 of per everybody coming into your shop. €12 they had to spend in order to be profitable. And that's a lot when you're opening up a coffee shop. And we'd already in discussions with Leonidas about supplying the chocolates, or taking on a butler type scenario. Um, but in the end, it was just like, this is not going to be worth the grief for everything, for all involved. And then so I stepped back from that and decided going to do insurance company. Myself and my partner, we were in Melbourne in Australia. We did Sydney, we did Melbourne, a few other places. And we were walking through Melbourne and down near St. Kilda, and I saw an Optus mobile with this campaign, Yes. And I was starting to think about whether I go back into the insurance market again, and saw this a big exclamation mark with Yes, and said, this is it. That's what we're going to call it. It's a great name. I just checked on Irish domains, and Yes Insurance was available, and away we went. And yeah, we bought a company in the UK during the year as well, a small brokerage. So we're obviously regulated in Ireland, and we're regulated in the UK as well. And we've just launched travel insurance. We were about to launch car hire access. We did a big tender recently, which we've won, which is great news. And we're already the number one provider of gadget insurance in the educational sector. So one of our big clients is Wriggle, and they provide the iPads for schools for kids in primary and secondary. And so we're the number one provider in the country in the educational sector, which is great. So getting there.
I mean, so it's an interesting space, right? I think there's a lot of insurance brokers out there. There has been, and there's a lot of maybe kind of one man band type businesses that have come out of kind of insurance broking and that kind of side of things in Ireland anyway over the last 30 years or whatever you want to call it. Um, but you sold Blue Insurance for a reported 70 million. And I know
I
you're not.
can't disclose.
You got.
Unfortunately, I have a confidentiality. I mean, yes, just figures that have been thrown out there. And yes, I sold Blue off to Covermore, which is part of the Zurich Group in 2018, and then I left in the middle of COVID in 2020. We were 28% ahead with 6 months of my earn out to go of targets, and then COVID came along and travel stopped. But luckily for us, we were doing a diverse range of products such as pet, gadget. People were getting laptops for working from home. Everyone's buying pets. So business still carried on, and we were clever in how we went to people that already had an annual policy. We knew they probably wouldn't be traveling for 3 to 6 months at that point. You're not sure when they're coming back, but 3 to 6 months so we extended people's policies for 3 months, and a lot of people continued on their policy. So that was the benefit of during COVID, that we were, even though probably the company that bought us wasn't getting any business because they were dealing directly with the trade in Australia, we were able to keep generating income, and we were passing money to them, which was great to keep them going as well, and so on.
How did you look at that industry and think, well, and to me, and maybe I'm wrong, right? So correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it's kind of, there's no kind of huge players saying gadget insurance at the time when you set up, or maybe there were in travel insurance and that kind of thing. But were you thinking, I'm going to build a big business out of this, even though it's kind of made up, the industry seems to be made up of a lot of kind of smaller
I'd
players?
like to say yes. That was in my plan, but ultimately, when I set up Blue Insurance in 2003, the initial part of it was to launch to the travel trade and give them a online solution that was very easy. A lot of it was manual, writing out pads for people's insurance and all that crack. But no, in 2003, myself and Ron Devereux got together. We took on one other girl at the time. I was answering the phones. Rome was still in Galway actually for a few more weeks anyway. So myself and Dan were answering phones. But luckily, people had known me from my previous company of Kinlan Insurances, and we set up a travel within that called KMT. So pretty quickly, everybody moved over when we launched Blue with a new online, very sophisticated as such website for them to book. And a lot of the companies thought we were English because everything we were doing was always very professional and very some of the stuff you saw around was very amateurish, but we were doing everything, getting the printing done, really done. Everything was done really well. And yeah, I think like in the first year we picked up budget travel in year one, and A budget traveler, amazing client, £2 million client, €2 million client, whatever, should never have collapsed. They were brought down because the regulator insisted on an open-ended bond, and they were being bought over by an Icelandic company that had an airline. And really, anyone that was involved said this budget travel should never had collapsed. But luckily for us, we picked up that business. We picked up a lot of travel agents. So from day one, we were making money in Blue Insurance. And even when different challenges came along, so we launched Blue to the travel trade. Then we saw the travel trade, their volume slipping in 27, 28 when Aer Lingus and Ryanair, remember the big airlingus.com campaign and Ryanair, so on. So that's when we diversified and we created a new brand called multitrip.com. At the time, others were selling insurance for 99 quid, 139 for an annual policy. We went out with 19.99. And we also, in 2008, then we also saw the collapse coming into the economy. We saw younger people traveling abroad. So then we launched Backpacker, travel insurance.ie and .com in the UK. And so every time we saw a crisis or an issue, coming out with new innovative ideas or responding quickly, and we were able to respond quickly. So even though budget travel collapsed and that was a £2 million account, €2 million account, we brought up the business because with Backpacker travel insurance and loads of people were traveling abroad to Australia and whatever else, Canada and so on. So we kept it, we still made profit even during that. And then the crisis happened and people stopped advertising. We continued to advertise. So everyone else just shut down all the advertising, but we said, here's an opportunity for us. We'll tell them we want it at half the price and we want run on. So say we were doing Dublin bus and you pay for 2 weeks. We have said we want a commitment of 6 or 8 weeks on that bus. And then sometimes you'd get it going for a year, which was great. You'd see the same ad you put. We saw something in Manchester Airport as well. We had an ad up for multitrip.com, and I think 4 years later, we paid for it for about a month. And 4 years later, it was still in Manchester Airport. So those
I
little nice wins.
a few years ago, I had Morris Pratt from CNC and Tesco on this podcast, and he had talked exactly about that. He had said that anytime he's on a board and something happens, they're like, we need to cut the marketing budget. And he says it's so difficult for some reason for people not to cut marketing when the market goes down. Because it's usually just the first thing to go. But if you can stay and keep spending, you tend to kind of outrun the
Well, you
competition.
probably could cut the budget, but you just have to be very clever about how you negotiate those deals. So maybe before, where you were paying maybe 5,000 for something on a monthly basis, then you go in and say, well, I'm going to have to bring that down to 3 or 3.5, but I want the same value I was paying for when I was paying you 5,000. And normally, if there is a crisis and these companies want to keep people on the air or keep them on buses or whatever, outdoor, whatever, then they normally do concede and give it. So, I mean, if that happened again, I would do the same again. And sure, look, we're known as the shark when it comes to marketing and costs and being lean. So, I mean, that's important.
I suppose, so the end customer, if you like, in Blue Insurance, and I'm assuming in Yes, is a kind of B2C. They're a consumer, right? They're buying
We
travel.
both. We B2B, which would be, say, our travel agent. So we're about to roll out our new product to the travel agent market, and they'll be selling our product. We'll probably distribute to some credit unions and some brokers. And then we have our D2C, which is to the consumer. And the consumer, then obviously we've got yesinsurance.ie. They'll be able to book online. And the mobile, it's very mobile enabled, and we're going to be launching an app shortly as well. So initially they can now buy travel, and we're doing an annual policy for $14.99 for the year to Europe, for Europe. So I still don't understand why people are traveling abroad and taking that risk and then end up having family and friends to set up a GoFundMe, and because of whatever, it's 15 quid for an annual policy. Gives you 10 million worth of medical cover, 1,500 of cancellation. Why would you bother for the sake of 15 quid not take a
Well,
policy and go abroad and take that risk.
this will seem crazy, right, to you, but for me, when I'm booking on Ryanair, I'm just so annoyed that they're trying to sell me more stuff that I actually just won't. I just won't buy anything just for that reason, because I know they're going to screw me when I get to the airport, right? So there's bits of I suppose it's a human thing,
But
right? But
I'm exactly the same. And look, I'm not short of a few quid, but I still get annoyed when you see all these extras coming in and forcing you for priority bag and all the usual. Um, but when you have potential for potentially up to €1 million of debt as a result of you having a serious medical, and it doesn't have to be the USA anymore. These medical costs in Spain, in Turkey, around Europe are so expensive now that it's just not worth the risk. And I would rather not have that vodka or gin on Ryanair flight and knowing that I just have that insurance in case something happens and not to have to rely on a GoFundMe page to get a body home or to cover a medical cost for an operation abroad because of, you know, falling off a moped, falling off whatever, slipping at a pool, whatever. Like I've seen it. Like we've had cases over the years where we've seen medical bills of 1 million. Somebody walking across the road in Miami. You've seen 500,000 in Spain. Air ambulances are like 100,000 minimum to get somebody back from Europe. So, and even on Yes, I've seen one this year from Portugal where an air ambulance was needed to get somebody back. And these people were healthy people. They weren't sort of people that had conditions or anything. It was sudden accident that happened, and it's just not worth it. But anyway,
you can tell from talking to you, you can kind of sense um your sense of purpose, if you like, and how important it is to you. And I'm kind of wondering, was it not obvious to you that you would go back into insurance after selling Blue because of how important you feel about it?
there was always a possibility that I could. It wasn't my intention to, and you know, I left Blue Insurance in October 2020. The company that bought us, they didn't have lots at the time, even though they're owned by a bigger entity. You know, they were still were in. So when I left, it was like, okay, I was moving house. I moved to the south side, uh, even though I'm still always a north sider at heart. I moved to the south side, and we finished off the build of the house, and that was keeping me busy. And I saw opportunity. I could still been working in Blue if I really wanted to, but it was like there was an opportunity here when I left that I also took an opportunity in stocks. So I could see the aviation industry, I could see the cruise lines, all of that were struggling as a result of COVID, but I knew it would bounce back. And I looked into everything and I did analysis of everything and I spoke to a couple of different people about it. But in the ultimately, the end, so for me, the least risk was going to be Ryanair, and I invested in Ryanair, and I nearly made just as much as nearly 50% back on what I'd made before. So it was a good win-win. And yeah, I was happy, that I had something keeping me going in my head as well as focusing on that because the stock market was going up and down every day. So you had to be conscious of buying, selling, buying, selling, buying, selling the whole time. Um, so yeah, that kept me busy. But your question, I had thought that possibly I might go back. And probably if I'd known I was going to have triplets at the time, I probably wouldn't have jumped back in so soon. But I brought in a senior management team led by Shane Kinnan, who worked with me in Blue Insurances. Damien Dunn is our CFO, and Greg Balmer, who was our CTO. And I hadn't worked with Greg before, but Bobby Healy, who's from Mana. I know Bobby, and Bobby interviewed a few CTOs for me and said Greg was very good. And then we've got Elaine Marr, who's our Rottweiler, who's our head of compliance, and she takes no mess, and which is right. So we've a really good team in there, a really good experienced team.
So take me back then to Blue. What I was going to ask there on the kind of consumer versus B2B side of the business was it kind of intentional from the start? So from the outside looking in, it looks to me like, oh well, this B2B thing, I mean, if it's if someone else is kind of selling your product for you, then I could see how you would get to scale where maybe you might be able to sell it for larger than one of these kind of one-man band operators, right? Was that intentional from the start? And well, am I right in saying that that's where the scalability came in?
The scalability at the early stages of it was through the travel trade, but it was always the goal to sell it through the travel trade. I don't th I'm trying to think at the time. I don't think it was our intention to go direct to consumer at the time. I think it was brought about by, the travel agents losing market share to the airlines directly at that time, because there was a big push by Aer Lingus on aerlingus.com. Remember the big red dot on all those days back in 26, 20 or 2006, 2007. And as a result of that, we said, look, we need to look at this. And there was budget was going at that time as well. We need to diversify. And I think that's why we've always been successful, because we diversified, we were able to move quickly, and we were also innovative. So like we were the first out there. We registered carhireaccess.ie.com, we'd annualtravelinsurance.com, we got another brands for the UK. We had gadget insurance, we pet insurance.ie. So we were diversifying and making sure. And a lot of the products that we have, even though they're very nichey, they sort of relate to each other. So wedding insurance was another one that we registered, wedding insurance.ie at the time. But we knew that somebody getting married would also need honeymoon insurance. So there's your travel insurance. They might be hiring a car. And it was around the 2008, 2009, where you were seeing less tour operators and more dynamic packaging happening, where the agent was putting your flight together with a hotel and with car. And there was the opportunity for the car hire excess insurance coming, because you get screwed at the rental desk about. They're just gangsters, if ever. Those ones abroad in Spain and Portugal are just crazy. Um, and so all of these products sort of interlined a little bit with each other. They were all related. So I think that worked well for us. I bought my business partner out, Rowan, in 2013. And then we decided to look at going into the home and motor market. But we didn't want to do it based on just purely price. It had to be a little bit different. So a pal of mine, she was a director in behavior and attitudes. We got her to do a bit of research for us. And we just checked out about what do they think about 2-year car and home. And everybody loved that idea. I think it was about 80% people came back and said, that's great. They don't want to renew every year. It's pain, blah, blah, blah. And you got a discount for taking a 2-year. So people really liked that. So we launched by 2015, we got that up and running. 2-year car and home. We had it on Sky News with ads. It was going very well. The None of the major players in the Irish market wanted to do it. So we had to go to an MGA in London to get it done. Um, and it just the market behind that just wasn't strong enough, and they were always, if the performance went any way down, and they were super strict on the type of business they were bringing in. But we did that for probably, well, up until I sold, and then the company that bought us said they didn't want to do car and home, so I offloaded at that point to Chill. And yeah, and then they kept the rest of the products. But certainly, to your question, initially we weren't focused on the D2C. Focused on travel agent market. The broker market came about as a result of that, and we'll probably do the same, as I say, in Yes Insurance now as well, and credit unions. And then multitrip.com took off, and like we brought in Craig Doyle was our brand ambassador. Then we brought in Catherine Thomas for a while, and then we Craig again. Now Craig is our brand ambassador for Yes Insurance, and I work with Catherine on other things as well. So um yeah, it came about just purely from the market changing and us thinking we need to diversify, we need to be innovative. And we came out with 2-year multi-trip. We went to Australia with the brand, we went into the UK. So we went into Northern Ireland with the travel agency business as well. And then we decided to go into the UK market. We spent about 400 grand on underground and marketing the underground, and in Manchester buses, etc. And that was a waste. Then that was we didn't make many mistakes during that time, but that was one. But you have to trial these things. It's probably not a mistake. You have to trial to see how things work. Media in Ireland was much cheaper. We dealt direct with the radio stations, with TVs, with outdoor, etc., Dublin Bus and so on. But in the UK, we tried to do that in the UK, and we said no, media is too dear. and you don't get the return. So what we decided was aggregators was our business. So the money supermarkets, Compare the Market, Confused.com, Go Compare. We decided to put our products on theirs. Their commission at the time would have been about 20%, 25%, then it jumped up as high as 40%. But we knew that if we were paying out, we had a policy. And the key thing was to get an annual policy. So the following year, we'd renew ourselves and keep all of it, where the first year, you're nearly paying all your commission to the aggregators. But that worked well for us. By the time I sold Blue Insurance, 40% of our turnover was in the UK, 60% was in Ireland. We had a mix of partnerships versus direct. I'd say direct probably was about 60% and partnerships 40. We think this time our partnerships in Yes Insurance will be much higher. And again, as I said to you, we've just won a big tender. Can't say what it's for and who it's for, but it's a very prominent insurer, and we're delighted. Good hard work done by our team, and we look forward to that and hopefully expanding on that into the future as well.
Like with Blue, you were kind of digital first, if you like, right? And when you're talking there about the marketing, it was like put it on a bus or at the radio, and that probably still works because I like if I listen to the radio, I can hear an insurance ad,
Out Insurance.
so
My former marketing manager works in Out
okay, well
Insurance,
there
so
you
that's
go.
like,
Okay, right,
it does work.
but it must, yeah, so it works, okay. But I from kind of when I would have started my career, say, in the internet was already you have so much more visibility, say, on like a Google ad or like a social media ad or something like that, that you can almost see who's clicking into things and everything. Whereas on a bus, it might just be, let's spend X thousand on this campaign, and all of a sudden you're getting more calls. Is that kind of how it works?
It is and it isn't. Like we always had, where did you hear about us? And all the times Google was a lot of the clicks that was on it. But we know some of it wasn't from Google. So I mean, as we got closer to the end of before I left, certainly digital PPC and SEO was very prominent as well. I think you have to have the mix of it. But for some reason in Ireland, I found that radio still worked very well. We did less and less in the buses as we got closer towards the end of it. It was more radio and it was PPC and SEO and stuff like that. And we did some social campaigns. Like we used to do more music weekends whereby we go to, because we were in the travel industry as such, and we were working with these guys, we were able to go to, say, the likes of Emirates, and they give us a business class flight. So one of the things we did on FM 104 was a more music weekend. We ran it for a whole month, and every day you were hearing about rock, shop, and drop. So we'd rock you at Bruno Mars in Dublin. So we got tickets from the radio station, put you, rocked you in Tree Arena in Bruno Mars. The next day we flew you business class to Dubai. So you shopped in Dubai. We put you up in the Burj Al Arab, and we did an agreement with our partner, so we covered that. I think we put up, it was whatever it was, the currency for UAE, with 5,000, which was equivalent to about a grand. We shopped you in Dubai, and then we flew you after 5 nights in Dubai. We flew you down business class to Sydney, and we dropped you into a great white shark cage in Sydney. So we did rock, shop, and drop. Now, I'd say this was probably about 2012, 2013 we did this. And I remember being in the gym in Ben Dunn's gym in Blanchardstown at the time. It was a Saturday. I was on a treadmill, a bit bored, and I go, oh, here, need to promote this. So we put it up, took a picture of a business class seat, put a picture of a shark, and go rock, shop, and drop competition under the multitrip.com page. That went viral around the world. Like we had 3 million hits on this, and I had people from Australia asking, "Can I enter this competition?" Like it was madness. It was just like that wouldn't happen now on a post because the algorithms and everything else would stop you. But that was the type of thing that was happening, and we did try to be different. We ran campaigns. We made sure we got our advertisements when we were doing sponsorship. We'd have it in and out, where others were still just going in. And I was just seeing, here's opportunity the whole time. Expand anything we can get everything, get everything thrown in. And we were always lean. Everything was lean for us. If we didn't get a deal on marketing, we wouldn't do it. And like even Maeve, my former director in Blue Insurance, So you come in and say, look, we got this, we've changed, we had somebody delivering fruit, and then all of a sudden we've got a new supplier, and look what we're getting. And I'm saying that's not enough. We need to get another 50% more. And that will be the mentality all the way through. Even to this day, if I'm booking a hotel or I'm booking flights, I'm looking for a deal the whole time. And like I can spend like, and I do when I want to, but I'm generally 90% of the time looking for a deal, from whether it's rent on our new building to whatever it is. I push all the way and I push very hard on it. So I think that's probably what makes us somewhat successful, you know?
It sounded like when you're kind of telling the story that you started the business, you made money in your first year, and it was all kind of great up until the end where you sold it for what would be reported to be quite a large amount of money. Um, did it feel like that?
Did it feel like which? As
Did
in
it kind of
it was
feel
we were on a
like,
roller coaster for the whole time?
well, less of a roller coaster, but more just kind of
A rocket.
up and
A
to the right?
rocket.
Did it feel like that?
Uh, you don't feel like that at the time. Um and even when I went to buy my business partner out, so Rowan in 2013 goes, "Oh, I'm tired now." He's only 42. So he's a bit cheeky, but look, I would have been the forefront of the sales and the marketing and all that, and he would have been the background compliance and accounts initially at the time. So we were in London and we went to this dingy underwriter's place at the time at 5 a.m. It was lashing rain, and we came out of the meeting and we were coming back. We were in the rain again, heading back on the train. And I said, "Oh, if somebody offered you 5 million now, would you take it?" And we were messing, like, just says, and he goes, "I would." And I said, "I know, seriously, would you take it if someone?" He says, "I would." He goes, "I'm tired now." And then the next day we went for lunch and spoke again, and I said, "Remember we were talking about yesterday? Are you serious about that?" We just so yeah, so we did. He obviously got more than 5 million, but um, yeah, within sort of 4 months, Rowan had finished up in the business, and then it was up to me to drive it on with Maeve and Dave, our IT director at the time, who were shareholders as well. So so yeah, we just drove it on for the next 4 or 5 years, but
But you must not have been tired. Would that be fair to
I
say?
wasn't tired at that point. Coming up to 17 and 18, I was going, "I'm here a long time now. This is, we're at that point, I think we had about 5 million cash sitting on the account. We were heading to 50 million turnover. And it was a case of, is this, there's an opportunity here, and maybe I shouldn't, because if I had gone on another 2 years, would have been in COVID, and that whole opportunity mightn't have come the way. So even though I didn't get a big an earn it as I had planned, I'd made it back on the shares. So sometimes there's a lot of luck involved. Um, and sometimes you have to take that look, and sometimes you also not to be too greedy. So even though I do look for the deal, I know if the time is right to just pull back and accept. But it didn't feel like we were on this rocket, because every year is a challenge, and then like there's a crisis going on. So it was 9/11, you know, um, in my previous job. Then there was the crisis, economic crisis. There was collapse of budget travel. Agents were collapsing. There's always something going on in the world. There was COVID. So there's always different events. Now you've got the Iran crisis going on, and people are concerned about flying, and will people get away on their holiday? There's always, I think you just have to be able to know that things are going to happen, and you just have to work around the scenario, and you try to be innovative, you try to be different, and you try to come out with something new. So like, for example, we want to bring in AI into our car hire access. People hire a car on holidays. You get to the car rental desk, you sign your agreement that you've either probably paid beforehand, but they tell you, you get there and they tell you, "Oh, there's no scratches on the car, but if there is, just take a video." You go outside and the car is like, it's been in the bumpers, you know, and you're trying to mark up. And then if you come back at 5 a.m. in the morning and they're not open, you put the keys in, all of a sudden these people are trying to screw you over. So one of the things we want to do is bring in this AI into our car hire access, where you take a video on the app or in the car hire access element of the platform, and you take a video. AI will come in and show you where all the things and dents are, and it will store it and record it, and it'll do all that, so that if the car rental company comes back to you, you can show them. And that's also to benefit us and our underwriters, because ultimately, if you take our car hire excess policy out, you put your credit card in, they take the excess, and then you claim against us afterwards. But like we're selling an annual car hire excess policy for 45 quid. They'll charge you 45 quid a day just to cover the excess. So people just need to be, younger people like yourself just need to be wary. You will get screwed at the car rental desk. I'm sure you're very savvy, but I mean, there's certain suppliers out there, and I won't mention them because I don't you being sued. But there are certain suppliers in Europe that are really bad, and they just want to screw people over. And I think the EU needs to deal with them. At an EU level, somebody needs to deal with the scam that is going on at the car rental desk, where a tiny dent that they would fix for 50 quid and they're charging 1,500 excess and stuff like that. It's absolute deplorable, and somebody needs to do something about it. But yeah, there's me rambling a bit. This is
Well,
my
no, it's very interesting, right? Because I can kind of sense your passion, for want of a better expression. And when you had said that when your partner was getting tired, he was kind of dealing with the accounts and all that kind of stuff. And probably he was just dealing with problems probably all day, right? Whereas you're, even in the mode you're in now, you're like, oh, I've get this AI thing that I can check the car and, stop people from getting screwed. Was it kind of a more exciting place for you to be, maybe? And just there was just more happening, that it just maybe felt a bit
Yeah,
more.
I like to come out with new ideas. I like to come out with new innovation. I love marketing. So I would write the scripts. So we'd Bridie and Craig and all those back in the days. And I was writing those scripts with a pal of mine, Frank Mackey. He's an actor. And he was playing Bridie. Sometimes he brought Pat Kinnavan in to do the English air hostess. And we tried to make the ads funny because there's nothing worse than having an ad that you hear every day and it's just boring. So I used to go down to the front lounge with him back in those days and write the scripts and type up the scripts. And now you can do it on AI and Claude in about 5 minutes if you get 10 of them. But back in those days, I was writing those scripts. So I loved marketing. I came up with the idea for Marv and their monkey at the time, create these characters into, like, we have it now. We've a dog in our Yes insurance, and he's in the back of a rental car, and he's on scooters, and he's on his phone, everything. Um, but yeah, no, I love all that element of it. But I also are very conscious, and I would have been still in the middle of the floor up until 15 in Blue. I was in the middle of the floor listening to everything that was going on, from call center to marketing to IT. And as I said to my current CEO, Shane, I used to do that, but you have to delegate. And I went into an office then after that and said, you need your team to delegate. You need to be able to. And I did know what was going on. And I was also on the socials. So if I saw a complaint coming in, I was all over gone. Somebody needs to respond to it. Even if this was at 10 o'clock at night and somebody was giving out about something on multi-trip, I would see it on my phone and I'd be like, what's going on here, folks? Somebody needs to respond on this first thing in the morning or whatever. And look, I mean, to be to be fair, the media have always been very fair to me. I think we were on Liveline once, and um, I didn't go on at the time because the customer rang us the night before on Live9 at 4 o'clock. The customer rang with a complaint, and we said we need to check about this, and we'll come back to you in the next 24 hours. The next morning, I had a call from Liveline saying we have this customer who's on, and a client of yours, and blah blah blah. And we said she only rang us last night. We're looking into it. No, you have to come on now. And I said I'm not going on now. So obviously, then she went on. She said her bit. And then I decided, hang on, that's not fair. So I went on after she had gone off. And then most people say, don't go on Liveline. But I just kind of felt, you know what? We're being portrayed wrong here. Went on, said my piece to Joe Duffy at the time. And I said, we care about every customer. And that's within us. And it's within all our staff, because we've ingrained from day one is, if this customer is just think of this customer as a family member. Are they being treated fairly? If they're not, then we fight for that customer. And that's the difference between a broker and possibly dealing with directly with an insurance company. Where a broker, you're deemed a client, you're our client. Then we've got the underwriter we have to try and appease as well. But ultimately, the client is the most important for us. So we will always be fighting on behalf of the customer or our client. Where if you deal directly with insurance company, they could just make a decision. Sorry, no, there's no claim being paid. And there's nobody there to fight for them unless they go to, all the regulatory authorities, etc. Or at least the broker does that for you. And that's how we feel. Every customer that we would bring in, I want to make sure they're being treated fairly, they got a fair price, got fair cover, they're being looked after well. And in the event of a claim, which is ultimate how you are viewed, has it been handled fairly? Have they been treated fairly? And if not, we will stand up there and we'll fight their case. And the odd time we've often paid out as well, just because we kind of felt, even though the underwriter, we might have fought the case, they said, no, we're still not paying out. We found these customers need to be paid for this. So that's in Yes Insurance as well. All our staff will be care about the customer. Customer is number one, their priority first.
Having done that, having gone on Liveline, did you either regret or were you happy that you had gone on in the end?
I was happy in the end because literally within 30 seconds of me coming off the phone, we had a number of calls coming in going, I heard your MD on the radio. We'd like to take a policy out with you. And this is not BS. This is genuine lead calls. And I went, well, at least we've defended ourselves. A lot of people would say you shouldn't, and probably you shouldn't, because especially if you went on with somebody, the consumer will always be deemed against a big bad insurance company, even though we're a broker. So but we would always fight the case, and I'd always argue that we would do that anyway. So in the end, it worked out in our favor.
As you were talking there as well, clearly something you had done over your time with Blue was bring on good people and have them around you. What did you kind of learn about hiring people and kind of scaling the company from an operations point of view? Like clearly it was going gangbusters because all the great marketing and everything you were doing and all the kind of commercial stuff. What about the kind of the trail you were leaving and the people you were bringing on and the operation? What was that like?
In Blue Insurance, we have had two MDs or CEOs that are in the company, and one is still there now, came up and joined us at 17 or 18 as a spotty teenager. So Maeve, who became the CEO after me, Maeve was in Australia. She worked with me in the previous company. She went to Australia she's only like 24, 23 at the time. I rang her and said, will you come back? I'm opening Blue Insurance. Will you come back and work? So Maeve joined us about a year after we opened. Jason, who's the current CEO, would have been in the call center as a spotty teenager, 17, 18, answering the calls. And he came along. So Pamela, who was also our head of compliance at the time, she also came up from being in the call center. So a lot of our team were brought up throughout the business. And now like two of them have been CEO. So I think that's a nice compliment to what we did. We're now in Yes. I went top heavy with senior management now first because I wanted to get things moving along. The 4-day week slowed it a little bit, but I know we've competent people at the top. Where before it was myself, it was Rowan. Dave became our IT director after 6 months because he was trying to screw us. He had an outsourced IT company that he just started, and he was going to try and charge us loads. And I said, "No, you're coming in house." So we started off early, but everyone that was in senior team all came up through the ranks of the business, and I think that's really nice because then all those people also know every element of the business. So Maeve's in the call center, then I brought Maeve into marketing. Then Maeve became our COO at the time. And she became a director, shareholding. So it was like, I think that's really nice. I think it's very complimentary, but it also means we also took on the right people. There's always one or two that are, should never have been hired. But I think, yeah, we had a good team, and we have a good team in Yes Insurance, and Yes is going to be very successful.
And what about management? I mean, do you see yourself as kind of a good manager, or what have you kind of learned there over time?
I would say I would have micromanaged at the earlier days. When myself and Rome were there, it wasn't. And then I was out busy on selling and marketing and stuff like that. But it did micromanage. Like, you want to know everything. And then in 14, 15, I realized, do you know what? You can't micromanage. It's too big. We've 85, 90 people here now. I said, I need to go into office and just trust the people that we have out there. So we had call center supervisors, we'd head of marketing, we've head of operations, we've head of IT. And basically you just have to let them do their bit. And I've said this to Shane this week, our CEO. I said, you're doing a bit like what I was doing, which is micromanaging everybody. And I says, you need to step back from that and just let the team manage the people that are responsible for each of the teams and make sure that they're doing their job. But it just means to free you up to be able to do that. Where if you're involved in everything, you won't get half of things done. And that's something I learned. And I was there for probably 13 years before before I just had to step back. But I think it was natural. I know something you mentioned earlier on was also that myself, Maeve, and Dave did the Leadership for Growth program management for growth. Because you're always at a point, is at what point do I need to bring in a HR person? At what point do I need to bring in, and we did that course, and then we decided we needed another layer of junior management in, and that really helped. So I would say to any entrepreneurs out there or anyone that's running a business is look at that management and leadership for growth courses that are out there by Enterprise Ireland, and it certainly will help. Um, but it is difficult. Sometimes you're sort of going, at what point do I need to really get bringing a HR person? Because throughout most of the time, even though we brought a HR person in, we had so little conflict. We looked after people. Like every year, we took people away. We took them away. Even the first year, we went to London. Then we went to Budapest. We went to Paris. We took them away. It was nearly as cheap to go on a Ryanair flight or an English flight to somewhere in Europe in December for a night or 2 nights. And that was a great sort of, we had a great culture in the Blue. People knew I was gay. I wasn't shy about it. So, um, diversity was there, quality was there. Like we were the only ones in the marriage equality referendum that actually sponsored, paid money on Dublin bus to say yes for equality. And that could have been a risk to our business, but for me, I didn't care. I was confident enough in who I was to be able to say, somebody asked me, "Oh, you're married," and go, "Actually, no, but I'm gay. I have a partner, whatever." And if they didn't like it and didn't want to date me, well, that was their tough at the time. But yeah, I was very proud because Laura asked me that in the Sunday Business Post interview. Have you ever been, pushing for a surrogacy because quality and whatever? And I said no, but actually I did. We were out there. We spent money promoting the Yes campaign, and I'm on the Irish Gay Dads, you know, WhatsApp forum and all that to try and get legislation moving on surrogacy. And I will bring it up. I will say it. And Jennifer McNeil needs to hurry up with it. They're only talking about it this morning on Morning Ireland. And yeah, we want everyone deserves equality. And people who are going through surrogacy also deserve the non-biological parents who are 24/7 with those kids deserve the same rights and to be known as their parent as well as the biological parent as well.
Do
So
you mind if I ask you just about that?
yeah,
And I don't mean to be reductive, okay? But you had said there, I was very confident in who I was, and everyone knew I was gay, and we had a great culture, equality, and all the rest of it. There's probably another path that someone could go down. Maybe if they were bullied in school, for example, or
I
something.
was
Right?
bullied in school.
So, and I don't know if you kind of got over that and as a result became kind of confident and happy in yourself, or whether it never kind of bothered you as much as it might have bothered someone else. Like, can you talk just a little bit about how that might have informed maybe your confidence and potentially your ambition?
Yeah, I don't know if that was my brought my confidence, whatever. Because I probably would have been fairly insecure in school, and I would have been bullied. And I don't think personally I'm camp, but somebody obviously, or whether they just decided, pick on him, he's weed, whatever. But I did get bullied in school in Joey's. I was in Joey's in Fairview, and the bully at the time I just had enough of. Probably it was fourth year, I think, and so I had built up a few pals around me that could protect me if I was going to get the head punched off me. But in the end, I just took him on outside the school and gave him a few punches. And not that I encourage violence, but at some point you have to go, "Do you know, enough is enough." And I had enough and gave him a few slaps, and that stopped. And there was the odd time to be a snigger or whatever, but the bullying stopped when you confronted the person. And actually, that person who would have bullied me for a period of time, then they got a big slagging from other people as a result of getting a few slaps back. And so, that happened at the time. I don't remember in primary, secondary, there was a bit of that. Um, but I got over that. And do you know what? Do you know what the confidence I think was, or not confidence, but the ability to communicate and socialize. I think that's so important in the business, especially in somebody in sales. They need to be able to communicate. And some people, you know, don't work part time. I worked part time as a lounge boy, and then I worked part time in Lily's Bordella. I worked in Club M first in the VIP. Then I worked in Harry Burns. I worked in the yacht in Clontarf, and I worked in yacht Clontarf and the cricket club in Clontarf Rugby Club. Then I went from there into Club M for a year or so.
Where
And
was Club M again? I
Club M
remember.
was in Bloom's Hotel.
Okay.
And they had a jacuzzi upstairs in the VIP. And I'm not joking you, like I knew I was gay at the time, but these women would come in and they'd strip off, get in jacuzzi, and all the guys would be like, oh my God. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, give me a break. And I had the laser show at midnight and all this. And then I went from Club M to Lily's Bordello. I was 1990. I was working in insurance and they weren't paying enough in Coyle Hamilton at the time. So I worked Wednesday nights and Friday nights in Lily's in the VIP bar. So I met everybody. I met Julia Roberts, Brad Pitt, all the stars. And Wednesday night when the international matches were on, you know, you'd Eamon Dunphy in with his Dom Perignon. You'd had, you know, I remember Packy Bonner. They'd just come back from some match in Latvia or Lithuania and just give me this big tip. And it was like, you know, whatever the currency was, it was like 1,000. I was like, oh, here, you're taking a mick now. I remember Mel Gibson coming in during Braveheart and drinking Ballygown. And when he signed the credit card, so it was only for 12 quid. I said, oh, well, I keep this. And I said, no, shove it in the tip. It could be arsed. I bet everybody, all the Eurovision singers, because it would have been on around, I would have been on the Saturday nights when they were on. And so that was an experience. And that's social. Social. You're out there, you're talking to people. And that's one of the key things in business is being able to communicate and speak to people and being able to just have a general chit chat with people. And I'm very shy. I will not go into a room, in a business room, and go up to people, go, hi, I'm Ciaran Mulligan. How are you? What's your name? Blah, blah, blah. I normally go to where there's a table that's free, grab my coffee, go stand there, and then somebody normally comes over to me. And maybe a few drinks later on if I was out and I'd be much more chattier. But I was never that sort of, oh, I'm going up here and my name is this and hello, you know, the big American way.
Yeah.
I was always like, I'll just go to the table where no one's there at the moment and we'll see if someone comes over or whatever, and I'll generally chat. And I can chat, you can say I can communicate, but definitely the social aspect of it. But I think that came from my part-time jobs. And I think that's a lot of college students don't even have that. And they go and try and start in a business and can't even communicate on the phone. So, and you know, even between texting and Snap and whatever else, it's the abbreviations and everything. Sometimes it can be, you'd be surprised how bad people can be. So that'd be a key thing I would say to people is go get part-time work when you're a teenager, 15, 16. And make sure that you're able to communicate. It's a key thing in business. If you don't have that sort of, you're for the birds a little bit.
Were you at all because even some of the names you mentioned there, like Julia Roberts, you know, was probably maybe a couple of years after that was probably in Pretty Woman or whatever. But you know, she's at the height of her fame kind of around that time. If I was to meet her now, I think I'd be a bumbling mess. I don't think I'd be able to communicate properly with her. Was it difficult for you as such a kind of young person being around these
No, you
characters?
were, to be honest, we used to love when Lisa Stansfield came in because her and her partner time would probably drink about a bottle of vodka a night. And she was so nice to us. She'd give us 20 euros each. The waitress and the barman would get 20 quid off. And you were delighted when, you know, she come in and go, hey, you know. But no, you're never a mess. It's exciting to see them because it's like you're in your 18, 19, 20, early 20s, whatever. And it's like, sometimes trying to get the wait staff to come and get you ice, but the night when Brad Pitt was in, all the girls going, do you want some ice? Do you want some lemons? So, you know, but look, you're not in awe, but remember they're people. And that's what if I bump into any celebrities now, I just think, look, they're just people, you know, because I've done that time in Lily's and met them, and some of them are rude as hell. And there's an Irish director that was really rude. I won't mention any names. And there was another Irish director who was really nice. So, and both directors were in the night. Brad Pitt was in. So, you know, you take it with a grain of salt. It's just, they're just people, really. And I'm sure some people, some of them probably love being, you know, approached and asked, and some people don't like it. But if I see people now, I just leave them alone. If I saw them, I just say hi, whatever, move on, you know?
You talked a little bit about it already, right? But selling Blue. I'm wondering, because I think a lot of people, and maybe they read the headline figure, report it, they think, wow, you know, that guy, he must just feel like I've made it. This is perfect. I now, you know, I'm not gonna have any problems. You know, this kind of thing. It's almost like reaching an almost enlightenment from a business point of view. What did it kind of feel like after you had sold the business?
I'm trying to think back now because I'm very level-headed. If I want, I can go out and buy something, whatever I want. Like I did go to Aston Martin in Park Lane in London and looked at a car and I said, I'm going to buy this, and went and asked them about it. And they said, oh, you have to, because of Brexit, you have to go to Charleshurst in Belfast. In the end, I went, oh, by the time I got back, it was like, ah, nah. Because we were going to Wimbledon. We got an invitation to Wimbledon. And we said, it was that morning. And we said, we go and have a look at these cars down in Park Lane and all this crack. And the end, I didn't. And would I want to buy one? So no, I drive a BMW X5. My husband, Brian, he's got an EV90 because we've 3 kids. We'll probably change that for a minibus because it's going to be easier. So, and I bought a nice house on the south side. I can afford whatever I want, but to be honest, I'm not into the pretentiousness. I bought a place in Portugal. It's not in Quinta. It's in real Portugal, as I call it. And I know some people love down in Quinta, but for me, it was going to be for where the family is, and outside in further into Portugal was more important. For it's on the coast, but I just think for our kids, I don't. I can play the D4 Quinta thing if I need to do it, but I also then like the realism of being real and the family, and we've 3 amazing kids, and it'll be all about them. And yes, I can afford wherever I want, but I don't play that game really.
Was there a sense of loss at all selling the business?
No, and I thought there might be. I thought there, I thought there would. I'd be really missing it, but I actually didn't. And I don't know whether that was because it was in the middle of COVID that I finished up, and I had the house, but I didn't. I think, I made a call at the time with Dave and Maeve. It was time to sell, and when I did, that was okay. And between the house and then we did a surrogacy journey in 22, and in 23 we had a son that was born premature at 23 weeks, and he's only survived 3 days. So stuff like that. His name was Connor. Stuff like that, and that journey that we went through. We had to fly to Tbilisi because the surrogate hadn't gone into Cyprus at the time, and we had to deal with the whole issue of we were a gay couple and all of that. And I had basically, in the end, I was told that we had to bury our son in Tbilisi because we couldn't get a death certificate because didn't have officially have a mother, and because we were a gay couple, it was making it very difficult. And we battled for 9 months to get him back. So we had to bury him in Tbilisi. That was traumatic. We had 9 months of this real heavy weight on our shoulders, and we took off from Istanbul on the way home, and just all I kept thinking is we've left him behind. But we spoken to our solicitor and he goes, look, you could be here for years battling this. So we left and came home. We started contacting everybody, all the politicians. We contacted the Georgian ambassador to Ireland, which his name is George. He was very helpful, but we were still dealing with a government in Georgia that was sort of Eastern European, Russian orientated, all very against LGBT rights and so on. And so, it's then you see your friends, and then you also see people that you don't know who are trying to help you. So one person did try to help us was Zadie Roach. She knew pals of mine in Cork, Brian and Paul, and they just got in touch and said, look, Ciaran's going through this difficulty. Ciaran and Brian going through this difficulty. Certain intent she could help, and she offered to help us. Others helped. We spoke with Mihal, we spoke with Leo at the time. He spoke to Leo, it was Taoiseach at the time. He spoke to the Georgian Prime Minister at the time. Jerry Butterman, Cork, tried to help us. And ultimately, in the end, went through the courts to try and get a death cert. They rejected it. In December 23, spoke to the Georgian ambassador. It was around the 22nd of December, and I said to George, you told me all the roadblocks would be cleared. I'm now telling you that if these are not cleared, I'm taking this all the way to Europe, and Ursula von der Leyen is going to get involved in this. And I said, I'm not threatening you, but I'm telling you, I'm not going to give up. I have contacts, and I didn't know Ursula von der Leyen from anyone, but I would have got to meet her. I would have flown. I would have met her, and I would have got her. That's the level of, that we wasn't stopping on this. And I said, I'm going to take this to Europe. And George said, and George is really nice. He said, look, leave it with me. I'm going to go back and talk to our justice minister. And this was before Christmas. Myself and Brian went to Miami over Christmas, and I got a phone call on 20th December in 23 saying, don't know what you've done here, but there's death cert on our desk, and your son will be home with you soon. And a couple of months later, we got him brought back. And the day we cremated him, because we wanted him in the garden, we wanted him in our house with us. We didn't want to have to go visit him up on the graveside. The day I remember after the cremation, and we were only very close pals we had at the ceremony of family, and that evening, two of us, myself and Brian, went to bed, and we were both exhausted, mentally exhausted, and we both have these throbbing headaches. But that night, this cloud, this weight on our shoulders, I couldn't explain it. Just lifted, it was gone. He was home with us, and that was a traumatic time for us. But I can't say that how this weight just lifted the next morning, because he was back with us. And then luckily we started a journey again. We were going to do it in Argentina. We were told that we'd be parents on the birth cert in Argentina if we did it in an area in Cabo in Argentina. And Annette Hickey, who was our Irish solicitor, she's brilliant. We started that journey, and then all of a sudden there was a new president there, and then all that stopped. And then we went back to Cyprus, and we had to bring our surrogates to Cyprus early because we didn't want what happened with Connor. And then luckily we've 3 amazing children, and they'll always have her brother, and his birthday is tomorrow, so he would have been 3 tomorrow, and they'll be 1 in a few weeks. So yeah, tough journey.
Firstly, I'm very sorry to hear that you went through that with Connor and your son, and it's horrible. But secondly, thank you for sharing it, because and you can, like, I can really feel it, i- that weight has been lifted, right? And obviously, it's very emotional for you and everything. And I'm
Yeah, different times at different. You don't think of them every day, but there's always different events that happen that we see him every day. And I bring the kids out the back and go, "This Connor here," um, and they'll always know they've an older brother. But yeah, he's always there. He'll always be with us, and we'll always celebrate his birthday. Like, we'll have a balloon out tomorrow, and we get a card every year from, and the kids will always know that they've an older brother.
was it difficult to pursue the surrogacy again or not?
I think once we got Connor back, that we knew we wanted to have kids. And this was a later thing in life for me to want to have kids, where Brian probably always would have wanted to have kids anyway. Um, so I kind of felt I'm at a good part of my life. I've sold my business. Um, we can afford to do it, and surrogacy is expensive, and it is tough for people to do it. But I kind of felt we can give. At the time we thought we were going to have 2 kids, we could give these kids a great life, and it was just fulfilling for us. And even with my friends, we've some older gay pals, and we've younger gay pals, a mix. But the older ones probably now don't have that opportunity to do it. And if they were younger, probably they would have had kids. They would have gone through the surrogacy journey. So for them, they're like aunties and uncles, as we call them. Some of them aunties. Um, and they get to enjoy and experience the kids because they don't have it themselves. So it's nice to see them, and we've, like, my pals and my very close network of pals are really, really good to myself and Brian. And, like, since we've come back, they cook dinner, like, each night. They come over and they cook dinner. I keep saying I just keep this up till they're 18, but they're great. They come over, and sometimes they come about 5:30. They help out when we're trying to get the kids washing, ready for bed, and feeding and everything. And they cook dinner, and they come over to see the kids. So it's a nice sort of circle that we have, a very close circle. And yeah, hopefully they'll always get to enjoy them as well.
You also started, I saw a travel blog. I don't know if if it was going to be something like the coffee shop or whatever, but obviously traveling is a kind of a
I love
passion of
traveling.
yours. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Tell me
My
a
my
little.
husband
Yeah.
loves going to Wexford because he's from Wexford, but I love getting on a plane and hopefully turning left if I can. And yeah, I did the travel blog probably around 16, I think it was 15, 16. I was writing articles for Northern Ireland Travel News as well. And I was going to take that further, but to be honest, between the sale, between the house, between everything, I haven't had a chance to do it. And I'm sort of thinking I'm going to bring guest reviewers into it to go and pay them to do the reviews and just to build the fabuloustraveler.com. Um, so yeah, look, it's the blog. I was actually just checking it yesterday. The security certificate on the site needs to be updated. But yeah, I've done pieces. I love traveling. My husband gives out that I travel too much, and probably the kids restrict some of that for a while. But as soon as they're able to, you know, get on the flight and not going to be drama, I start bringing them long haul as well and let them see and explore the world because it is an amazing place. And yeah, the Fabulous Traveler was just a blog that I did time, and because I knew the travel industry and that I was able to do pieces and try and promote some of the travel because I do think it's important. People say, "Oh, travel agents are less and less and less." They're less and less. The business has declined a little bit, but every time there's a crisis, every time there's COVID, there's a 9/11, there's the Iran war, or whatever else is breaking. Travel agents, everyone goes back to travel agent because they're looking after you, looking out for you. If you're on your own, you're less struggling. You're not going to go on a high end cruise or a high end holiday and rely on yourself to make sure that you have it all. Travel agents know their business, so and they're my clients, so we'll always push them as well. Anyway,
To finish, let's come back to yes insurance, right? Because I suppose that's what's taken up. I'm just taking up most of your time, but only in business, right?
yes, only in business. Yes.
Because the triplets clearly are taking up a little bit more time. So you've bought a company in the UK, you've started with the management team. I'm curious about what things you kind of learned from your time at Blue. Have you just sort of said, I'm just doing this time and I'm not going to be dealing with that particular thing? Are there any things like that that you're just like, I'm just starting
Well,
from
I
here?
wanted to be much quicker, but unfortunately, the 4 day option didn't make us much quicker, slowed us down a bit. Um, Started with a senior team rather than working up, so it is costing more money, and I'm putting more money into it. So I'm investing into the business. Um, but with the team we have, like we're already being successful. We've already picked up. We're the largest gadget supplier, as I mentioned, in the country. We provide in the educational sector. We want to roll out. We want to do something different for direct to the consumer in gadget, and we're looking at a number of items ensuring, which in the one deal that's coming. Um, we want to go into the UK with the educational sector. We think we can replicate what we've done in Ireland and replicate that in the UK and in the north, and think that will work very well for us. Um, we're going to do travel. We're going to be doing all the products we're going to do in Ireland, we're going to do in the UK, but we're also going to go into Europe with them as well, to the underdeveloped markets in Europe. And then our phase two is to build a comparison engine and launch a comparison engine in Ireland. Don't know whether we'll do it in the UK because it's saturated with comparison engines in the UK, but Ireland doesn't have a really, really proper comparison engine. And then look at doing that maybe in Spain and Portugal and other places as well. So we're looking at all that. What was that question? Yes, yeah. I've ADHD a little bit, and I start wandering off, as you can see from my conversations. So
Well, that's the same as most people. That's it. Is it that it's either dyslexia or ADHD? I have ADHD, so
I think a lot of people have it.
I think I
Actually,
know.
I'm hearing more and more.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I brought in the senior team. We want to do a bit quicker. Um, the goal would have been to exit sooner than 15 years that we would have done in Blue Insurance, so maybe 10 years with Yes. But build it, and even though the headline was in the Sunday Business Post, would be to sell it for a big. But to be honest, it's not about the money. It's wanting to build it and make a success, and say I've done it again. And maybe at some point in the future, if the market conditions are right, I'll open Mully and do the coffee in the Leonidas and possibly travel agency. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe there'll be new things coming along at that point. But between Yes Insurance, and I have the senior team there, and the triplets, they're my priority. The kids are my priority now, and I have the right team in to manage Yes Insurance. So hopefully we'll have a happy ending of everything, you know.
Ciarán Mulligan, it's been a pleasure having you in today. Thank you so much for doing it. Normally, if I have a kind of pre-call with someone, I'll tell them, well, look, it's a business podcast, but it's really about people. And we never had that conversation or anything. You just agreed to do it with kind of sight unseen and everything. So thank you very much for doing it. But I really feel like this was really about the person, and it was about the business, which is always important, but it was really about the person. So thank you so much for coming and sharing everything.
Thanks
And
for
we wish you
having
the
me
best
in.
of luck.
Thank you.